Hello and welcome to part 2 of this two-part video working on this first generation Microsoft Surface Pro, where basically I've taken it apart. A long struggle indeed, and managed to get to the SSD, and that was as far as I got in the last video, but since that video I've actually taken the SSD and got an adapter to plug into it and USB, and basically it was dead. Checked it out physically, looked at electrical connections, could not fix the SSD. It was basically a dead duck. So I managed to get a replacement from Germany, a refurbished SSD, put that into the tester. That came up as a blank disk with 120 gigabytes of space. So I then decided I would put that into the Surface Pro and rebuild it, and that's where we carry on. So you'll see me starting with the bit of a clean up to get rid of the gunk and stuff around the Bezel parts of the Surface Pro, and then the full reassembly, installation of Windows 10 and testing. So on with the show. Right, I've started the process of getting this Microsoft Surface ready for reassembly, and I started on the Bezel with the thinking that it's probably the easiest place to sort of start cleaning up. Initially I looked on the web to see if there was any instructions on how best to remove the double-sided tape that they use to stick the Bezel and the screen together, and various different people said different things. Heat it up, use isopropyl, use a scraper. So initially I started here just using a scraper, and it got started, and I thought, right, okay, I've got a heat gun, let's try that. So I heated it up, and it just turned into like a mess, a big gunky mess, and it became more and more difficult to remove. So then I decided to spray a little bit of isopropyl alcohol on it and scrape at the same time, and that appears to be probably the best bet, because you can scrape, and as you scrape, so the isopropyl gets into the glue and releases the glue, so it seems to be coming off slightly better that way. So I'm going to press on with this. I'm not going to film the whole lot, because it's going to take me ages. I've got to do all around the Bezel, and then I've got to turn the glass over. I'll probably do a little bit of filming on the back of the front glass before we can get on to the reassembly once we've fixed the fault. So back with some more of this later on. Right, so as you can see, I've managed to get pretty much all of the gunk off all the way around, and by far the easiest way to do it is to soak the tape that's on there, the double-sided tape, with the isopropyl alcohol. Let it soak in for a little minute or two, and then you'll see that just going along with the spudger, scraper, or whatever it was you want to use, just gently pushing it, gently keeping the spudger flat with the plastic, and then just going along, and you'll see it basically lifts the tape off and comes off into almost like a roll, if you like. So it's really just that the isopropyl is releasing the glue. One thing I would advise, because isopropyl has a reaction with some plastics, although I would guess that this particular plastic is immune to it, but some plastics on some devices may be affected by the glue, by the isopropyl. So I would clean off the isopropyl as you do it. So you can see there, just scraping it like that, just literally nudging the tape along, and it's coming off quite cleanly and easily, leaving a nice clean shiny surface underneath. So I'll carry on with this, and then we'll try and do the same with the glass in a little while. Right, so there we have a nice clean bezel, about as clean as I can get it. Again, removed all of the double-sided tape off of that, and also up the top here, or sorry, it would be down the bottom, I think, yes, because that's where the camera goes. Down the bottom here there was two little plastic strips which I've separated out and cleaned, and I've marked where these two strips will go. That covers these screws when it's all put back together. There's one or two little bits of stuff left there, but it's nothing too fancy. There's a little lens for the light that goes in there, and I've taken that out and kept that separate, cleaned that as well. So that's the back of the bezel, is nice and clean anyway. So now the next thing we need to do is to move on to the screen. So here we have the screen of the computer. It looks a bit bubbly there. I've put the screen protector back on. I took it off when I was taking the screen out, but I put the screen protector back on just purely to prevent any further damage whilst I was working on it. But I had to heat it up, and I didn't want to melt this screen protector. I mean, I'm sure you can get replacements for this anyway, so it shouldn't be a problem. But this is the back of the screen, and excuse the flickering there, it's picking up another light in the room. This is the touchpad, the capacitance touchpad, and it's got double-sided tape on that as well. So I'm going to have to be very, very careful how I take this tape residue off of here. I'm going to be very careful about isopropyl alcohol on here. I'm just going to see if I can just scrape it gently off first, without putting any alcohol on this, to see whether that black residue will come off on its own. If not, I may have to just do tiny little bits by tiny little bits. Now, because of the way the camera is picking up reflections in here, it's going to be difficult to get this in view as I do it. But let's just focus the camera there. I'm going to put it sideways on so we don't get this reflection from this other light. I'm going to start down this little corner here, which is away from the lens, etc., and just see if running the spudger very carefully along here, if that will release this glue. And it seems to be coming up. Now, with a bit of luck, if I can get the end of it, I may be able to just peel it back. I don't want to put too much pressure on this because I don't want to damage the capacitance structure of this touch screen. If I can help it. I've probably damaged it and taken the damn thing off anyway, so the worst comes to the worst. We'll be back to square one. The customer will just have to use the keyboard rather than the touch screen on this, but see how we go. Yeah, so just gently easing this off. Let's manoeuvre things a little bit better on the bench here so I can work at a bit better angle. Okay, I'm going to try just a little bit of isopropyl on my brush rather than spraying it. Just to see if that's going to release the glue of this. It seems to be doing the same as it did on the Bezel, which is good. So that is releasing the glue. I've also got to be careful that I'm not going to damage the actual surface of the touch screen. You might be able to see that little faint lines there of the touch screen back. Okay, I think we can risk spraying isopropyl. There doesn't seem to be any damage to this touchscreen here, and there's still a residue of glue there. So I think if we tilt this slightly as we spray it, then the isopropyl won't go into the touchscreen too much. One thing I don't want is isopropyl leaching its way into the gap between the touchscreen and the actual display, because if that happens we'll end up with like puddles everywhere. But that definitely seems to be, the isopropyl is definitely releasing the glue on here. So just being very gently going around it, not putting hardly any pressure on it, just literally working the isopropyl into it. So that's the way I'm going to go. The camera's in the way for me to work properly, so I'm going to stop filming here and hopefully show you this when I've got all of that removed. Right, well, I've done the best that I can in removing all the double-sided tape from around the outside of the display. Now obviously if you've never worked on one of these, you may not be aware that there is the touch screen film is attached to the back of the glass, and then the display is mounted onto that. Now in using isopropyl, what has happened, obviously surface tension has drawn in some of that alcohol. You can just see it if I push that up like that, you can see it underneath. I think as it warms up, hopefully if I can just keep working it like this, you can see I can get it towards the outside. I don't think it's crept underneath the actual display, because I can't see any evidence of it on the actual display area. All seems to be quite good, so I think it's just purely on here. The difficulty will be that if I don't get rid of this, and this touch screen, which is what the double-sided tape is used is on, when you put this back together, it will still come off, because the touchscreen is not separate, is not connected to the screen. So I'm hoping that if I just keep working my fingers down here and just keep it nice and warm, perhaps the isopropyl, and it certainly this corner seems to have been going back down again as nice, but I don't know if there's any kind of glue or anything I could put underneath it to hold it back on, and hopefully the glue that was in there hasn't been affected by the double-sided tape. Now the only tape that I haven't taken off is down this bottom edge here. I'm just going to leave that as it is, because this is where the contacts for the touchscreen are made into this ribbon here and so on, and so I'm going to leave that as it is and just hope that everything else will hold it back into place. So I'm just going to keep working my way with my fingers back along this edge, working it towards the outside. Appears to be, this is where I was using the spudger along here, so this damaged the edge of this as well, and at one point I was scraping what I thought was the glue, and it was actually I was cutting into the actual touchscreen itself. So I want to leave that, and it's going to be a little bit of a nasty edge, but you know, this thing was never meant to be user fixable, and as much as I've done various screens and phones, I've never come across anything quite like this. The touchscreen has always been, you know, separate from the glass. This is the only time I've ever found that the touchscreen surface, the capacitance touchscreen, is actually the bit that they glue the screen on with. Anyway, there we are. It's one of these things. I don't think, if somebody brought me another one of these, I think I would say, look, you know, there's a good chance that we'll never get it to go back together as it was. Are you prepared to take that risk? and I'm hoping that my customer is going to be reasonably happy with how it goes back together at the end of the day. All we can do is keep doing that. I'm still waiting for the replacement drive. Hasn't arrived as per the planned delivery date. Maybe that will arrive tomorrow, and hopefully I'll be able to get this working again. I've taken the drive and put it into a little test adapter which I've also bought that I hadn't had before, and it definitely is not recognised under Windows, so I know that the drive is faulty. It sees it, but then it can't activate it. Whether there's some special formatting involved in that, I don't know, but I don't think there is. From all intents and purposes, you can replace these drives and they work just like a standard Windows drive. So I will keep just gently working on this until I can get all the alcohol liquid back out from under the edge, and hopefully when we come to put it all back together, the double-sided tape that I'm going to put back on will stick to it. We wait and see. I've put it all back together but not glued it. It's all tentatively held together. There's loads of screws and things to go back yet, but I wanted to make sure it worked and did what it was supposed to do before we did all that. So let's power it on. There we go. Perhaps detecting it as a hard drive. Right, so can we move the controls? Yes, we can. Ooh, last time we did it, well, I think we installed the default keys, but we'll do that again anyway. So go yes for that, and then we'll exit the setup, save the configuration, and now it's gone off and the Surface has started again. So we'll turn the Surface off, and we will we'll set up Windows on it if it will go in. So now when we start it, it should boot into the Windows start screen, and we move the camera so that you're not seeing. Let's turn that light off for a minute. So if it's going to boot from the USB drive, we should see the little swirly circles start up down the bottom. It's taking longer, so it's not going into the BIOS setup, and there's the swirly setup. Yes. Now we got this far before, if you remember, and you probably can't read what's on the screen there. I'll try and focus it. Okay, that's about as good as I can get it at the minute. Let's try that. I'm just using the keyboard at the minute, so tab down through the options to next, hit enter. Install now is there, setup is starting, and again we got this far before, but you remember that when we went to try and install it onto the mSATA drive, it said there was no drive available. So again, tabbing down, so accept and hit enter, or space to tag it, and then next, hit enter, and we want to go custom install. Right, so there we are. So it's now installing Windows onto that drive. Installing files. Getting files ready for installation. See if we can get the screen any better. I'm sure if you've installed Windows, you've seen this screen many times before. Yeah, so making a keyboard, we'll skip on. Let's go to that. Work. So we know Wi-Fi is okay. I'm not going to try the touchscreen yet because I'm just expecting it to load drivers, etc. before the touchscreen becomes active. I may be wrong, but the touchscreen may well work, but I don't know. I honestly don't know whether it will work on a tablet touchscreen device. Right, don't use. Yeah, let's go back to that. Let's go to that. I suppose we'll use that. Yeah, yeah. No, we don't know. Right, this is Windows 10 2004 version. So hopefully, now I can already see there's a little bit of an issue with the screen. Now this might have already been there, I don't know. I don't think it was, but that may well have been down to me opening this device up. Thankfully it's only down in one bottom corner, and that may not affect anything else, and it seems to be, yeah, that may dry out if it's anything to do with the cleaning fluid I used to try and get that. I don't know. We shall see what we shall see. The thing is, it's doing a lot more now than it did when the customer brought it in to me, so that's a good thing. Don't worry about marks on here. This is the screensaver, or the screen protector bubbles. The whole screen seems to be there. Oh, we're almost there. We should get the desktop any moment. Yay! We have a desktop. Now, does touch screen work? And the answer at the moment appears to be no. So we've probably lost the ability to use the touchscreen, unless the touchscreen is disabled when you've got the keyboard on. I don't know. I don't know is the answer to that. So that's the mouse pointer. Yeah, definitely not touchscreen. So let's just go device manager. Right, display adapter is there. Other devices, SM bus controller, unknown devices, we don't know what those are. Human interface devices, let's see what that gives us. GPU laptop state indicator driver, touchpad, touchscreen. So touchscreen driver is installed, so the touchscreen should be working, and it's not. Okay, that's, well, a loss we'll have to contend with. Unfortunately, there is no short way. Okay, so I think at this point in time we shall let it just sit there and install all the necessary updates for Windows and see if that makes Intel driver update. You see there's various drivers updating, surface type, cover, filter, device. Yeah, let's let it do all the installs because we're installing this as a fresh Windows 10 copy rather than the probably recommended way of doing it, which is you sign into Microsoft with your account and you download a pre-built package for Surface. That's the way Microsoft recommend it, we're installing it fresh from a USB key. So I'm going to stop it there and come back later when it's done all these updates. Right, we're back with this computer, and we've done all the main updates, and we're just now installing the very latest 20H2 update on here. Sadly, the touchpad is not working, but at the moment, as I said before, I'm pretty sure everything's connected, but I might have not connected something. But taking the keyboard off, definitely the touch screen is not working. As you can see, nothing's happening when I touch the screen. So my guess is that the touchpad has been damaged whilst taking it apart. We won't know fully until I get it right back together. So I will carry on finishing this update, and then I will shut it down and put the thing back together and see what happens after that. Okay, so it installed the 20H2 update, and I've run through the little Microsoft touchscreen problem fault finder, if you like, and it doesn't appear to be operating on the touchscreen. So I'm going to basically take it apart, double check everything, but also in the same process actually physically put it back together again as well. So just to show you how it was all together, the screen comes off now. I've just got to be careful when I'm doing this that I don't accidentally power it back on, because I don't particularly want to power it on whilst whilst I'm in the process of taking it apart. So on with the old magnifying specs. So what we're doing now is to just gradually going around. I have to put the camera sideways on because I can't get the camera in and my head in at the same time. I'm just triple checking that all the connections on the front seem to be okay. But anyway, we're going to take them out. That just pulled out on its own. I think it probably has. Okay, so anyway, we're going to take everything apart. So we just need to flip that up, and then the same for these ones on the display. That wasn't down very well. That might have been their problem. Little flight that locks these down wasn't down very well. Perhaps I didn't press it down hard enough. We might have found the problem. We will wait and see when we get back together. We will know. So that should be all the screen parts off. So I'm going to put the screen over there. Take the bezel out. And the camera, which comes out here. Just very gently lift the camera connector up, because we've got to put a load of little metal plates and screws back into it as we go around. Now, as I took it apart, normally when I work on things I would work on it all on the same bench at the same time, but because I had to order parts and I need the bench for other things, I had to just get the magnifier away. I don't need that at the moment. So two little screws I had to take out of the clamp at the front, which also connects the battery pack into, so the battery terminals connect up here and go through here, which is the same as the power as the keyboard connector here. And in order to get this little ribbon cable in, I had to take this connector off the front panel to put it back in. So I'm going to put those little screws back in. I don't know what size this Torx screw is, but it's very, very tiny. Thankfully my driver is magnetic, so I can hold it in place. One. Two. So that's in place there. Got various little bits and pieces which I have to remember to put in the right place. Long metal plates times 6. Let's get the 2 metal plates. Now we've got the motherboard back in, all the connections, we put the big screws into the metal plates. We've now got to put all the little screws in the metal plates before we put the bezel on. Right, now we've got all the little tiny screws into the outer side. We're now going to put the bezel back in, and then what I plan to do is to apply the tape to the bezel rather than to the screen. I think that'll be an easier way. The camera just sits in a little holder there, and connector presses down, and then we've got all the screws necessary to go into here. We are back together. All the screws are back where the screws should go. There's just 2 other things to go in before we apply the double-sided tape. There's 2 little covers which go over there and there, presumably to guard against something, and that little lens goes in there for the light for the camera. So I think we'll get our reel of tape and a big pair of scissors. I think we can do 2 strips about that length. Cutting it down the middle. This is nothing special than just bog standard double-sided tape. Only a big reel that I bought from somewhere or other. That fits perfectly on there, straight edge, cut side down. That fits on there nicely. Right, let's reapply the display. Now we did find, when we did this last time, before I do any of this, I'm going to make sure all the ribbon cables are really well and truly home. So that one is definitely in there. And clamp down. Definitely in there, and clamp down. And that one. And there, and clamp down. Nice and hard. That seems loose. In as far as it will go in. Okie dokie. Before we seal it up, let's see what it does. Volume up and down is working, but the touchscreen is not. Facing camera, lights on. Due to circumstances beyond my control, I wasn't able to finish off the video. Basically, I laid the tablet flat on the workbench and put a heavyweight on top of it to make the display stick to the double-sided tape, and left it there for a couple of hours. And then when I checked it, everything was okay. The touchscreen was still not functioning, but the customer was in desperate need to have it back, so I wasn't able to do any more filming on it. She came and collected it. I was quite happy with the repair. There we are. So thanks very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you want to see some more, and I'll see you next time. Cheerio.